Howdy, Ags. Welcome to the November Luncheon of the Brazos County A&M Club. It's been a pleasure to have each of you here over the last couple of months. I know COVID kind of prevented us from meeting for quite some time, and it's great that we're able to come back and gather together in fellowship and support of the Brazos County A&M Club and the Association of Former Students. Now, it's kind of funny that today is our luncheon day because it also happens to be Pass It Back Day. Which is the single largest day of fundraising for the Association of Former Students, with a goal of fundraising and reaching more than 1,876 donors in one day, in one 24-hour period, with a goal of reaching and having one donor from every state in the union. So all 50 states and 1,876 donors all total. It's an ambitious goal, but I think we can do it. We are the Aggie Network, and we believe in the cause of the Aggie Network. So I encourage each of you to visit Pass It Back Day at aggienetwork.com and find a few dollars to donate to the Association of Former Students. But without further ado, I do want to invite Steve Aldrich up, class of 78, to lead us in a pledge.
Forgive us for just a minute. It's the Boy Scout in me, but the American flag is always supposed to be to the speaker's right. We have a flag? Yes, and we do have flags.
I was going to tell him just to turn his back to us and we'd be okay.
Okay. All right. Please join me in the pledge to both flags. After the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag, we'll have the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
And please join me in welcoming Mr. Eric Wiley, class of 93, to bless our food.
Please pray with me. Dear God, thank you for bringing us together today for good fellowship. We pray for our leaders of our university, of our community, of our state, and our nation. And thank you for all the blessings you give to us. Bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you both. I do want to introduce any new members or new attendees that we have. Do we have anyone over here starting in this table? Anyone new? Stand up, say your name, stand up if able, and say your name. Visiting. Nick Bass. Well, welcome. Round of applause. All right. I love new faces. Joy Pruitt. Welcome. Another new face. Excellent. All right. Fantastic. Good to meet you, Russ. Or good to see you again, actually, because you've been to a number of these already. Do we have any new one over here? All right. Welcome, Tom Wilkes. And I think that's our speaker back there. Anyone new back there? New right there? Anyone new right here? Welcome. All right, welcome. I have my fiance Maria with me. So she never comes. She rarely comes these days, but she's here. The one that actually puts up with me every day. So I owe her an apology and a thank you for allowing me to be here with this club every single, it seems like, day. We're doing something for the club. The club is quite busy. We're doing lots. But so thank you, Maria. But I want to thank everybody for coming again. November, this is our last luncheon for 2020, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be with all of you as president of this great organization. I really do believe in what we do here, and I believe in what the association does. And it's kind of fitting that our last luncheon, it falls on Pass It Bat Day. It's just an incredible opportunity for the Aggie Network to come together and give back to the school that we all love so dearly. But without further ado, y'all don't pay good money to hear me preach and speak. So without further ado, Carl Orozco to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Howdy. I get the pleasure of introducing our speaker this afternoon, actually. President Young. Since May of 2015, Michael K. Young has served as the 25th president of Texas A&M University. Before coming to campus, he served with distinction as the president of the University of Utah, go Utes, and University of Washington, where he elevated both public universities nationally and internationally, enhancing their commitment to innovation and increasing their federal research funding. An esteemed leader and scholar, he's a graduate of Harvard Law School with a broad array of intellectual interests and professional accomplishments. Among his experiences, he served as a law clerk to the late Supreme Court Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist, and worked extensively on treaties related to German unification and helped create the original North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. At Texas A&M, he has envisioned and implemented a strategy to help the university continue to rise among the ranks of major public universities, earning renowned recognition for innovative programs such as our President's Excellence Fund and our Student Success Initiative, as well as supporting our Lead by Example campaign, which has become the most successful fundraising campaign in the history of our university. Now, President Young has allowed us to have him give us remarks today. However, he does have a very, very tight schedule today. So there will be no questions and answers after this, because he's going to have to take off immediately after his remarks. So we apologize for that. But again, with everything that's going on campus, you can understand why his schedule is so tight. With that, President Michael Young.
Carl, thank you. Howdy. I love to be in an actual group of real people saying that. This is really a treat today. Thank you. And Chris, thank you for all the work you do to keep this organization running. I have to tell you how much we rely on and how extraordinarily helpful the Aggie Network is. In terms of supporting our students with scholarships, in terms of all the things that you do for us. When I look at this university, I always think, we know how to make a good university. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. We can do it. We can't make a great university without you. And we watch this university, increasingly great university, and I know why. It's because of people in this room and all of you just like that. Kyle, it's good to see you as well. So in any event, I am delighted to be here and have a chance to talk to you just for a minute or two about the university. I will be happy to take some questions or kibitzes or complaints or concerns after. I'll just talk for a few minutes about the university and then be happy to talk about whatever you would want. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different today, and it may have to do with the fact that I have been working in senior leadership roles in universities for a very, very, very long time. And come June, we'll segue to a different role. It makes one a little bit reflective. And I thought, maybe it'd be fun to kind of reflect on what's happened the last 6 years or so here at this university, because it has been, I think, genuinely extraordinary. I think this university is on a trajectory, even in the face of some really extraordinary challenges, on a trajectory that very few universities in the country really are on. And I think that's exciting. And I think it's a tremendous tribute to what went before, the foundation of this university and all that had occurred, and a great tribute to all that this university stands for and what everybody has done to support it. So I thought I would just talk about that for a few minutes, because I think it is interesting. When I came here, I was sort of struck indeed by the quality of the faculty. Very, very strong faculty, leaders in their field, many with renowned reputations nationally and internationally. The staff was hardworking, loyal, committed, and so forth. But what really, for me, turned the tables were the students. I had a chance to meet with some students, talk to them. They didn't really even know who I was or why I asked to talk to them. I had told John that before I made any decision, I really wanted to see what the student experience was like. I wanted to talk to the students. And so he went out on the street and randomly picked some students. He picked the student body vice president. He picked the head yell leader and the commander of the corps, all randomly picked. And I had a chance to talk to him, and I said, "Why'd you come to A&M?" And all of them had a story about someone they had met, their scout leader, their minister, their father, their mother, somebody who represented something to them that they wanted to become. More than just well-educated. In addition to well-educated, they all wanted to use their education to do something important, to serve others. And I thought, this is unique. This is unique. The notion of education with purpose, education with values wrapped into it. I thought this is a very, very special place. And the chance to come here and to work in that environment, which is what education ought to be, was just a rare privilege. And it has proved to be that. I won't say there's not a single day in which the students disappoint me. Every once in a while, they're 18 and 19, and they have brain freezes and do things that you expect 18 and 19-year-olds to do. But that history of this university that wraps that notion of values into education and communicates every day in some way that the responsibility that comes with the privilege of a great education is to use it on behalf of others. That is exceptional. And it is so pervasive and so baked into this university in powerful ways. And I can give you just so many examples of how we see it and see things that you just don't see at any other university in the country. And that seemed like a rare privilege. And so we arrived and realized that we also needed to surround ourselves with a really strong team of people who had that same vision for what was important and central to this university. And we're very fortunate in attracting some terrific senior leaders at this university. We knew that we needed to retain and recruit faculty. That was really critical. We knew that we needed to invest more resources into student programs to help them get the very best out of this education they could. We knew that the physical plant needed both renovation, but also needed a lot more of it as we had grown. And we needed to deepen our partnerships with state, federal funders and partners, as well as with private philanthropists and others who would share our vision of things that needed to be done. And fortunately, we were working on a very strong base. Vision 2020 had been outlined and developed starting in 1998 by some extraordinarily committed and engaged Aggies. And we had built on that very successfully. That had been the roadmap to become a Tier 1 research university, to get into the AAU. That had all been successfully accomplished. You might notice, by the way, it is 2020. And we, in fact, are celebrating the success of that particular strategic plan and have now developed what we're calling a decade of excellence, which is our vision for 2020 to 2030, which I will be privileged to watch from the cheap seats, as I'm certain will achieve that as well. We developed some pillars that we wanted to be very clear about. What are we going to build on? One was transformational education. One was discovery and innovation, the research component and the discovery component of the university. The third really was impact, that what we do ought to matter. It ought to make a difference in the world. It's wonderful to cure cancer, but if it stays in the test tube, interesting cocktail party conversation, but nobody gets better. How do we get things out into the lives of real people, making the world a better place? And developing and ensuring that the academic community was aligned behind all these goals and these values. So let me just briefly tell you a little bit about each of those. Transformational education was number one, not surprisingly. These students deserve an extraordinary education, and we were deeply committed to providing exactly that. And not an education where they simply sat in a classroom and listened to lectures, however brilliant and interesting the lecture might be. The key was to help them develop their critical analytical skills, to be able to learn, to be able to problem solve, to apply what they learned in the classroom in real world settings. And that's important. It's not always comfortable. Learning how to think, learning how to solve problems is more difficult than memorizing what's on a page and repeating it back on an exam, but critical for these students to do that. And so developed a whole series of, we actually began to identify what did we consider a transformational educational experience. And I'll give you an example. If you go to the Zachary building and see how the Zachary building, the new engineering teaching complex, you go in there and you see that the professors actually, the classrooms are structured with small groups. Instead of big lecture halls, small groups where the students will see the lecture notes up there. They will have seen in advance the materials, read in advance the materials, and then in small groups, how do I apply it? How do I take that and solve a real world problem? How do I develop a capacity to really use my critical analytical skills to both understand and to apply those concepts? And we identified what those experiences were. Doing research with the professors, another example of that. And so we increased the number of opportunities for our students as undergraduates to have research experiences. We have 6,500 students now, undergraduates who do research, what we consider a significant amount of research, which is 15 hours a week under the direction of a professor either alone or in a research group. Capstone projects, things like that again require them to apply what they learn in class. Study abroad. You may not know this, but a small fact, you can wow people at cocktail parties. We send more students study abroad than any other university in the nation. We don't think of ourselves always as international, but we are very international because that's the world we're launching these students into. And it changes their perspective in ways that are extraordinarily important to the educational experience. And so we measure those experiences. And our goal is, first year was every student would have at least one. Second year, we would work to make sure every student had two. And now we're graduating 85% of our students who've had at least three of those experiences, we identify as transformational. And that becomes important. It becomes important too to make sure that we've had tremendous success in attracting students. Just to give you a little perspective, we've added about 15,000 students, which is like 2 universities here in Texas, in the last 5 years, 6 years. 30,000 students in the last 15 years. So we have to make sure that we're not simply growing, but we're growing with quality, that our outcomes are not getting worse, but getting better. And so we set up a student success initiative under the direction of our provost, and essentially looked at retention rate. How many students are dropping out? Let's stop that. How long does it take to graduate? How many students do actually graduate? And the two metrics are usually 4 years and 6 years. Are the numbers that the state and the federals look at. So what did we do? Well, as it turns out, on every single one of those metrics, our success has really been wonderful. We moved from 92%, which was the highest in Texas retention. It's now 95%. Now that sounds like a very wonkish thing to say. 3% increase. But let me tell you, that's 335 students. 335 students are going to continue their education who wouldn't have. That's 1,200 students a year through the pipeline who will graduate, who wouldn't otherwise have graduated. So those small percentages reflect really important individuals and individual successes. Our time to graduation is the shortest in Texas, 4.1 years. For those of you who have children or grandchildren who say it's a 5-year plan, tell them you talked to the president. He said 4.1 years. Just let them know. Highest graduation rate in Texas. Greatest return on investment as you look 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years out. So, And the demand for this degree continues really apace. We looked at the statistics, just to give you a small example of that, statistics with respect to COVID, and most of them were saying that 16.1% of freshmen, potential freshmen, said they were not going to enroll this fall. So we thought, whoa, that could be a problem. But as it turns out, we had 5,000 more students this summer than we had last summer. Almost a 20% increase in our summer enrollment, and we've got 1,500 more students this fall. We did not intend to have 1,500. We really intended to stay flat, which is where we're trying to stay for a few years while we get our infrastructure to be sufficient for our student body. But in fact, our yield rate went up. And so we know that what we offer here at this university is something that people are passionate about. They want. Even in the face of this epidemic, we have people who are knocking down the doors to come into A&M. And this year was no exception. We had almost 50,000 applications this year. I'll tell you a little bit about the class. 11,000 students basically enrolled. That represents almost 2,000 different high schools. 195 Texas counties are represented, 46 states. Over half of the students, well over half of the students, are actually in the top 10% of their class. We are number 2 in the nation for public universities for national merit scholars. I mean, I keep saying how glad I am to be president because I couldn't get into the university anymore. But at the same time, we represent Texas. 1 in 5 of our students, 20% of our student body is first generation. So we still are really committed to that land-grant institution to try and help these students change the trajectory of their lives. And change it does. I was being interviewed the other day, and somebody on the legislature, and they wanted to know, what's our budget plan? And I said, let me step back a step and tell you, our budget plan's easy. We need more money. And I'm going to tell you why we need more money. Merari Bofeld. Now, most of you have never met Merari. Merari graduated about 4 years ago, came from Elsa, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. Her parents, grandparents, picked fruit and vegetables out in the heat to try and get enough money to survive. But her parents and she wanted something different. She wanted a chance to really develop her full potential, and she wanted to serve. So Merari came, and we try to help that to the extent we can. We alone as a university give about $60 million in financial aid, which complements what the federal Pell Grants provide as well as what the state grants provide, but trying to make sure that the Meraris can all come here and do it. She graduated with honors. She went back to Harlingen, Texas to teach, to move other people into the same life that she enjoys, wanting to serve. And her very first month, she was selected as Teacher of the Month. But there are 11,000 Meraris out there teaching in elementary schools and high schools and junior high schools all over the state of Texas. That's why it's important. And I was telling the legislature, that's what the funding is for. It changes the face of Texas. And that's what we need to do. So all of these statistics I give, really behind every statistic is a face of a student whose life has been changed, whose family's lives have been changed, the trajectory of their family has been changed in different ways. We also have worked to expand our facilities. We have built about 2 million square feet of mostly academic space. That doesn't count the athletic space we built, but mostly academic space, a little administrative, but mostly academic. Our new classroom building, we've got a new laboratory building going online, the Zachary building, the research buildings over at the health sciences. All of those absolutely critical to try and have our infrastructure catch up with the size of our student body. And our size of our student body is large. We're 71,000 students now. We are the largest or the second largest university in the nation. And we need to provide facilities. But we're not also confined just to here. We built a new facility in McAllen, Texas, which we thought, maybe we'll have 150 kids there over the next few years. We've got 500 students there now and need to build a second building there. We just established a large campus in Washington, D.C. The Bush School will be able to start its first set of classes in January. And that is important because our students from the Bush School serve in government positions all over Texas, serve in public administration. And that's important because this is what President Bush said about the Bush School. He said, next to my family, he said, the Bush School students and their interest in serving their country is the most important thing in my life. He says, I feel very good about leaving the world in their hands. Over 70% of our graduates in the Bush School go into public service, which is unique among public administration schools. And that's important. And now it's really apparent that we need to take Texas values and we need to take Aggie values to Washington, D.C., right? So we're going to be in Washington. And 5 years from now, we'll have fixed it. We're very excited about the prospect of that. But in any event, we're going to start classes there in January. We're going to be able to bring our professors and our students there for all sorts of activities because that's where the policy debates occur. Our people are extraordinarily well recognized, and what can we do to help that? I could go on and on. Faculty is truly extraordinary. We have increased by almost 15% the amount of research funding. We're knocking on the door of $1 billion worth of extramural research funding. And every one of those dollars does something truly extraordinary. I had a remarkable experience, not this last summer. I was, of course, locked in my house last summer, but the summer before. Went out, and we have a ship called the Joides Resolution, which is a deep water drilling ship that we have managed with a federal grant for 25 years. And it was docking in the United States first time for a decade. And I thought, well, let's go see what kind of research we do. And they drill into the deepest places in the ocean. They do these core samples and learn about the history of our planet in terms of its geological, in terms of its atmospheres, in terms of its bio content, what kind of animals and so forth, by being able to core. You may not know this, but we have one of the biggest collection of core samples in the world right out there on the Relish campus. So anyway, I got to see that, the deepest depths of the ocean. I'm going back to my hotel, and a young woman stops me and she says, "Excuse me, are you President Young?" It was absolutely random, and I'm thinking, I must be on the news, like Most Wanted. I wasn't sure what, so I said, why? Why do you want to know? No, she says, look, I'm one of your professors. And I said, what are you doing out here? She said, well, I'm working with Scripps. We're sending mice up into space to learn what are the physiological impacts of long-term stays in space. And I thought, in one afternoon, the deepest depths of the ocean to the moon, that's where our research was. I mean, it was extraordinary. And I could tell you about all the COVID research we do. I could tell you about Rod Pettigrew, one of our professors, distinguished professor, member of the National Academy of Science, National Academy of Medicine, just got the Vanderveer Bush Award, which is the highest award given to a scientist for their career. Thomas Mitchell from our law school just got a MacArthur Genius Grant. One of only 20 that are given out in the United States every year, for work he's done that's very Aggie-like. He discovered while practicing law many years ago that there were a set of laws that really disadvantaged people, particularly in underserved communities, in rural areas and so forth, in terms of holding on to their property. And so he said some fixes in the way states adjusted that ownership law would solve that problem. And so he packed up his family, went to graduate school to study that, with every professor saying to him, this is really silly. You're never going to get a job. Nobody cares. He cared. He took that, got his graduate degree, went into teaching, and worked with the national associations that develop uniform state laws, who all told him, we've never had a property law developed. We develop property laws and everybody ignores them. 17 states, including the state of Texas, have adopted this law so far. That to me is a kind of genius that is an Aggie kind of genius. How do I make the world and how do I change? And all of that's getting reflected nationally and internationally in terms of reputation, and that is exciting. World university rankings, which is something we look at a little bit. We don't care about the rankings unless we're going up, and then we're very happy about the rankings. But we've looked at this one. They rank 2,000 of the best universities around the planet, 2,000 universities. In 2015, we were not even in the top 100 from international universities. We're now 73. We've moved up 35, 40 points. Nationally, we have moved up to 41, 41st best university in the entire nation. We were in the the high 50s before. Wall Street Journal has us ranked as number 20 among public universities out of 800 that they look at. We rose up 4 places in U.S. News this year. Money Magazine ranks us the top university in Texas and number 11 in the nation. So there is a recognition that what goes on here really has got this university on a trajectory, and it is the envy of so many universities around the country. And again, a university that is able to do it because of the support it gives. And I'll conclude with just a couple of last thoughts about the notion of community. We have had so far, if I'd given this speech on Friday, it would be a more impactful speech than today. But we have had enormous success, comparatively speaking, on being able to continue to offer education even in the face of COVID. In fact, one ranking said we were among the top 10 in the nation for how we had responded to it and so forth. And still, there's virtually no transmission on campus, in classes, that any kind of interaction that we have any control over. And that's very good. But that is a function of a community that really came together in last spring. Actually, starting in January, we had the first student who had COVID come back. And who didn't have COVID. He was from Wuhan, and we were beginning to get inklings that something was going on in Wuhan. And so we started planning at that point. When we decided to go online, we had 4,000 professors in less than a week learn how to deliver all of their classes online, 13,000 classes. So we were able to continue the semester. The spring or summer term was all entirely online, but again, we had 5,000 more students who found that an attractive way to continue their education than they had even the year before. And right now, about 60% of our classes still have an in-person component, which isn't to say all of our students are coming to every single class, because they're also able to do it remotely as well. We wanted to make sure they could do both. But very few schools in the country have that. Almost half of our student contact hours have an in-person component, and that will be true in the spring, or at least so we hope it will be true in the spring as well. That's an example of how this community comes together. Most remarkable thing I've ever seen. And I'll conclude with the last evidence of how this community comes together, and that's the capital campaign. I mean, we have just concluded the largest capital campaign in the university's history, one of the largest in the nation for a public university. It has truly been extraordinary, $4 billion, and we will blow well past that mark. Scholarships, endowed professorships, support for physical plant that we need, research funds, all of that. People have stepped up in a way, knowing what this university stands for and what it represents, and why it is so important and why this university matters. People have really done something truly extraordinary, and I just could not be prouder of this university and what everybody has done. Well, I've got lots more things I could tell you, but I will just tell you in where I started, which is with real gratitude. This university, I came to this university because it had such an extraordinary foundation, because it stood for something, it represented something. And I think we can say it is still very much true to that. And that matters. That matters. So with that, I would be happy to take a question or two, please.
Kristen Cox, class of 83. Just want to thank you for all the research that you all are doing. I think it's going to play a role in solving COVID, but also this young man here has a disease, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, 100% fatal. He's already outlived the life expectancy, and Texas A&M is leading in that research. And I know you have been bold, and I just want to thank you for the excellence, for the compassion, for the care, those puppies, and I know it hasn't been easy for you, and it's worth it.
I appreciate that very much. You have to know he's one of my heroes, one of my favorite people in the world. So, yeah, like I say, not everything we do at the university is going to be uniformly applauded. But we look at it very carefully. We look at it with eyes of integrity. We look at eyes of what needs to be done, and we make sure that we do it in a way that's consistent with all the standards that are necessary to ensure the best outcomes. And I appreciate that very much. We have terrific professors, and they care. Okay, well, I've obviously outstayed my welcome already, but I just want to end by again thanking you all for what you do for Texas A&M. Thank you.